Hello and welcome to Political Smackdown. For the record, Bill Beck and I had nothing to do with that intro.
That's a Democrat thing, wasn't it?
Gosh, well, we didn't even know it till we saw it flash up just now. Welcome to Political Smackdown. We're glad to have you with us today. Well, Andy,
Wes?
with only a few weeks under his belt, I think it's fair to say that Donald Trump has been the most productive president of my lifetime. I don't agree with everything he's doing and have a real concern about governing by executive order, but he's certainly fulfilling his campaign promises. What do you think of the first few weeks of the new administration?
I think it was appropriate. We are in the twilight zone, Wes. There is no doubt about that. Funny how these gremlins just keep popping up on us. It happens a lot. You know, you give us a lot of stuff to pick and choose. First of all, sovereign wealth fund. We have no money, Wes. We are a debtor. Sovereign wealth funds are usually done by countries like Saudi Arabia. They have an excess of funds. That's what you do with a sovereign wealth fund. You take extra money you have and you deploy it across the world to make more money. I don't know what that picture actually means by that. I guess,
Well, you're the one talking, so
well,
there you go.
I guess he thinks he's number one. He usually does. So anyway, then we go to Gaza. He wants to make, I don't know what he thinks he's going to do there. I guess he thinks that's going to be another Trump go-to place. I guess he's going to make that Mar-a-Lago number 2 over there, I guess. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, he's going to take Greenland away from, I think, was it Norway that owns that?
Denmark.
Denmark, he'll take away from Denmark, another one of them cold places. Women's sports, he's going to make sure that no transsexuals get in there, which, you know, I don't have any issues about that. You know, Panama, he says he's going to go down, he's going to rip that out from the Panamanians, which, you know, there's some people that could probably say we probably still own that. Canada, he's going to make them the 51st state. I think the Canadians may have something to say about that. Tariffs, I mean, we're all over the place on that. I don't know why he thinks throwing tariffs on everything coming in and out of this country is going to be a positive thing for the economy, other than he's going to drive up prices on everything around. He's going to hurt the very people that elected him. I mean, that makes no sense to me. I mean, you just named something, cereal.
No, and he did tariffs in his first term.
Well, he hurt those people too.
No, he
And
didn't.
Biden kept them.
We had a great economy until COVID during his first
It's
term.
still, I mean, Mike.
And we had no inflation.
Mike, how do you say that raising prices on people's basic commodities they use
Some of y'all just don't understand it.
Well,
I agree that in an ideal
Don't understand
world,
tariffs, you mean?
don't understand his motive.
Oh, no, I don't. I'm with
no,
you.
I
don't.
really I don't. I mean,
His motive is to get people to do what he wants to with the threat of tariffs or temporary tariffs till they do. And we are, as he puts it, the pot of gold, and it's working.
well, then the average working class are the ones that pay the freight on it. I mean, that's just the way it happens. Now, the declassifying JFK and Martin Luther King files, I'm all for that because I want to know. I really do. I mean, there's been a cottage industry that's been going since the 60s over this. So I think it's time we know what's going on.
I think Andy needs to fly over the Gulf of America, don't you, Wes?
Wes, would you please explain Basic Economics 101 to Michael, please? Please do
I've
this.
tried.
Please.
I've
I mean, in honor of trying to understand all that, I watched Atlas Shrugged, all 3 movies this week.
Did you really?
Yes, I did.
Aren't you smarter?
Well, I understood it anyway.
Okay.
So, anyway.
Well, good. Mr. Harris, welcome to the show this
Thank-
week. Glad to
thank you.
have you with us.
It's always a
What do
pleasure.
you think of the first few weeks of the president's?
Well, I agree with you. He has been productive.
No doubt
Absolutely.
about that.
He has produced more chaos and disorder in 3 weeks than any other president in American history, including the 45th president. He's produced more chaos than that. We know that Donald Trump was elected with 2 charges: do something about the border and do something about inflation. Those were his charges from the voters. There was no mandate from the voters to occupy Greenland. There was no mandate from the voters to pick a fight with Panama. And now, as Andy said, he's picked a fight with Canada over tariffs. Canada is our closest friend in the world. In 1979, the Canadians risked the lives of their own diplomats to get 6 American hostages out during the Iranian hostage crisis. When Hurricane Katrina struck in New Orleans, Canada was the first nation on earth to send help, foreign help, to New Orleans. And Canada 2 weeks ago had crews and equipment fighting fires in California. And that's the ones that we've decided to attack. And the Canadians are now booing the American anthem at hockey games.
They also dump cheap lumber into the United States, hurting our lumber industry and helping West.
And helping West and
Well, the last round of
and-
tariffs sure didn't help me, I'll tell you that.
and
They
helping,
hadn't
and
started.
helping everybody,
They were through.
that either builds a house or repairs a house.
But in fairness, the tariffs are suspended.
Yes, they are.
Strictly
30
a
days.
threat.
That's right.
to bring about some
and I think that's
changes.
the
So,
problem. If you agree with Trump today, you got to disagree with Trump tomorrow, because it's all over the place.
Well, no, that's negotiation.
He did write the book, The Art of the Deal.
Yes, he did, and I read it,
I did too.
and it's crazy.
It didn't help y'all much.
No, it's crazy.
I guess Andy needs to watch the movie. Mike,
Well,
what are
I
your-
also
what's your
read
thinking?
A and
Well,
Rand too.
I
so-
want to take a serious one that he's done, that he's already gotten a couple of judges to say. Y'all been through the list. Let's talk a minute about birthright citizenship. The long-term thing going back to 1868 when it was passed by Congress, and 1866 and 1868 when it was ratified by the states. It applied to our black citizens, many of whom had been slaves. And there's never really been a clear-cut Supreme Court edict on the whole meaning of it, and that's going to have to finally be decided. For example, if a tourist comes here on a passport and has her baby 2 months premature while she's in the United States, is that baby a citizen of the United States? It's born here. If an illegal alien comes here and has a baby, is it covered by the 14th Amendment? That's what's going to finally get decided. The 14th Amendment does not actually say that all persons in the U.S. are citizens. It says that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens. That second conditional phrase is often ignored, perhaps misinterpreted. Critics believe that anyone present has subjected himself to the jurisdiction of the United States, which would extend citizenship to the children of tourists, diplomats, and illegal aliens alike. A lot of people don't think that's what that phrase means. And finally, we're going to get something definitive eventually, probably from the Supreme Court. So I think that's an important one that is going to finally be fully decided. I just thought I'd do something serious. That's all right with y'all.
Yep.
Y'all are having too much fun with
I was
this.
going to say, we got started off the whole Twilight Zone thing, threw me for a loop. Anybody else have any
By
comments?
the way, unless Wes has changed his mind in 48 hours, which is very possible, he agreed with about 70% of what Trump's doing and hated 30%. So that means I'm probably at least 80-20, Wes, because I'm not quite as far out as you on libertarianism.
But surely, Mr. Trump is not going to argue that the 14th Amendment means that illegal aliens are not subject to the jurisdiction of American laws. We expect them to be subject to the jurisdiction of American laws. That was written into the 14th
The
Amendment
Democrats
to
don't. They
exclude
create
ambassadors.
sanctuary cities and won't cooperate with ICE.
Well, but if they are not subject to the jurisdiction of American laws, which is the other part of that phrase, then they don't have to.
They're here illegally.
But
They
I agree.
ignore the law getting here.
I agree with you. I agree, but that's a separate issue from the 14th Amendment.
Well, wait a minute. It has always been taken. The assumption is when you enter into some country, you by de facto fall under jurisdiction to those laws unless you are a diplomat.
That's right. If you have diplomatic immunity.
If you have diplomatic immunity, you are set aside. And
Because you're not subject to
Right.
the jurisdiction thereof.
that is. So other than that, you are subject to those laws, whether you're legal or illegal, period. That has always been the case law, to my understanding, Roger.
That's right.
If I stand be corrected, so be it.
But the
Diplomats in Washington, D.C. have a tag that say DPL,
Yep.
and the joke in Washington is it stands for double parking license.
There you go.
Because they know they can't get tickets.
Right.
As I understand it, though, Andy, the Supreme Court of the United States has never definitively talked about some of these issues I raised about birthright
Well, and that's
citizenship.
fine, but also the other thing with the 14th Amendment is that if you are a diplomat for our country, or if you are in the armed forces or the diplomat corps or anything like that, and you are a citizen here, if you have children born in foreign country, in services country, your children, whether they are born outside or not, they are citizens. Because John McCain, his dad was in the Navy, and I think he was born in Panama. If I think, but he was a citizen because of his dad's service.
But we're not talking about diplomats. We're talking about people that snuck over the border and have evaded the laws of the United States.
But Wes, you've got to take it all into the context. You've got to take it all together and have it. But I agree with Mike. There needs to be a clear cut with the whole thing. You've got to put it all together and have it definitive. What it's going to be.
And I'm not arguing to throw out the 14th Amendment. Don't misunderstand.
No, I don't think you are.
I do think your point is well taken. It's going to be decided. That's coming.
It'll take 2 years at least, though, to get to the Supreme Court,
Well, I'm
probably.
quite sure this will not be the last discussion we have over Donald Trump's executive orders or other things.
Since you about wasted the first half of the show on the Twilight Zone,
I keep waiting on Rod
let
Serling
me tell you
to show up.
something else good that Trump's done, Mr. and Mr. Democrats over there. He's caused the senators up there on the Democratic side to lose sleep. They had to stay up all night to delay an inevitable appointment of a vote to whatever he's getting. But night before last, they were up on Wednesday night. They were up. They did 30 straight hours of debate just to delay a vote.
And I thought 2 or 3 were going to have a heart attack.
I think they saw Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
All right, we're going to take an early break, and we'll be back right after this.
Hi, I'm Shara Miller, the host of Artworks. Each month, we bring to you wonderful, talented artists from here in Cleveland County and the region. We have artists, we have potters, we have painters, we have musicians, we have actors. We just have wonderful artists that come to you and tell you about all that they're doing, their creativity, what inspires them. Join me here on Artworks each month on C19. You can also watch us online at c19.tv.
She gets her hair from her mom, her eyes from her dad, and her drugs from her home medicine cabinet. Fact: more people die from drug overdoses than from car crashes or gun violence. And over 50% of those deaths are from prescription drugs. Prescription drug abuse is preventable. 1. Secure and take regular inventory of our medications. 2. Dispose of unused or expired medications. 3. Share this message with others. Be aware, don't share, lock your meds.
Welcome back. Well, in addition to a new president, we also have a new Council of State that met for the first time this week. The treasurer had some rather strong comments about some state debts. Mike, you had your first meeting with the new treasurer on the Local Government Commission this week as well. Start us off with your thoughts on the treasurer, and the auditor had comments at that Council of State
Well,
meeting.
the new treasurer's name is Brad Bryan, and we've actually had 2 local government commission meetings, which is a board that I've served on for, I guess, 10 and a half years or so now. And he's had 2 meetings. We have had a meeting, Andy, that lasted an hour and 20 minutes and one that lasted 20 minutes. we've been used to 3 and 4 hour meetings, so that much is different. Now, maybe the agenda just hadn't been that heavy. He's made some changes.
It's
at that,
early in it.
Yeah, he's made some changes at that level, but my initial impression of Treasurer Briner is positive. He seems thoughtful, direct, and honest from all I can tell. He is already tackling an issue that of all the issues he tackled, at least in regard to how it's going to have to be tackled now, he didn't, Treasurer Falwell, as good a treasurer as I think he was, I think, Roger, he held the line on retiree health costs and other costs for
absolutely
his
did.
whole 8 years when we had tremendous medical inflation pressuring the state side of it. And Briner is saying, as much as he hates it, that can't continue. He's even talking about, Roger, not raising the employee contribution to health insurance at the lower salary levels as much as he will raise the higher salary levels. I guess that's to try to be sensitive to how big of an expense that is to people. But he's going to try to deal with the retirement system, which has a good bit of unfunded mandates out there in the future, or unfundedness. It's just not, there's not enough money been put aside by the states, the counties, or the cities to completely fund them. And it's even much, much worse on the health thing. And Andy, that goes back to when you were there.
It was a disaster
been
even
getting
back
worse,
in.
but-
I mean, the state health plan has not been funded enough forever. I mean, and the thing of it is, and that was one thing about the previous treasurer. He tried his best to try to get a handle on it.
All he could try to do is control the cost side because he couldn't get the General Assembly to go along with any increases in cost and contributions from the employees and retirees.
Well, but here's the the formulary is always been, and I tried, that was one of the last things I took a swing at while I was down there. The formulary is screwed up. I mean, it's not truly reflective of the needs of the patients, in my opinion. It's all over the place. The last meeting, I had a meeting that I wanted to see if I could find some kind of consensus. And I mean, I was in my 3rd term. I said, well, maybe a few people show up. Good night, nurse. We had to get a bigger meeting room. I had every drug lobbyist, everybody. I had the chairman of appropriations showed up. I had the majority leader show up. I had everybody you could imagine showed up.
You rang the dinner bell.
But you couldn't get anything done.
Well, that was
Nobody wants to deal with the
Well,
problem.
if you and Tim had left me alone, I probably could have. But that was my last term, so I didn't have time to get it done. But nobody else picked it up and did anything with it. So we're still sitting there 20-something years later. I mean, because it's a complicated issue and it's going to take time. And you know, our treasurer tried to do something about it, but it's one of those things that takes a lot of people a long time to chip away with, because you're fighting everybody. You're fighting the hospitals, you're fighting the drug companies. I mean, it's terrible. It's hard, and it needs to be done.
Well, Mr. Harris, we've got more than a few teachers out there that have worked a career or are working a career in part based on some of these benefits. We've got other state employees. What are your thoughts on this first meeting and what the treasurer's doing and others?
I think he's tried. Treasurer Briner, he's got some big shoes to fill following Dale Falwell. Dale Falwell really was an exceptional treasurer for the state of North Carolina. But that treasurer's office manages, as you say, those two big pension plans, the teachers and state employees plan, and also the local government employees. So it's not just teachers, it's policemen and firemen and all those folks that work for local government, and that state fund is underfunded. And for our audience, what that means is there's less money in the plans than is needed to pay out in benefits. We've heard similar arguments about Social Security, so it's along those same lines. And they are in the check delivery business. Every month they have to send out $755 million to 375,000 retirees. And that is a contract those retirees have with the state that they've gave 30 years in or whatever it was. And that's a contract. And that fund balance increased under Falwell, but the argument I think of the new treasurer is it did not increase enough that he has invested. Falwell, the argument is he invested too conservatively. About 48% of that fund was in equities, Across the nation, about 70% is in equities, and I think that's one of the arguments that the new treasurer is making, is that we have to invest that money more aggressively to get a greater return.
And do you think Harlan Boyles will roll over in his grave if he gets to 70?
He's a whirling dervish right now. But Roger, that's
But
been
under
the
Bowles, it was 97%.
Oh, it was
funded.
even worse.
Yeah.
But that's been the argument with everybody that's held that position, is they felt like their job is to protect that money, which is true. But you've got to have some of it. You've got to strike while the iron's hot. When the market is good, you've got to go for some kind of returns. You can't put it all in CDs. You've got our treasury bonds. No, you've got to go out. Now, you don't need to come out with some penny stocks or something like that. But there are some things you need to be aggressive on. And I think that's what I like about the new Treasurer Bronner. I think he's finally wanting to look at some of that stuff.
Because there is an opportunity cost when you miss those.
There is.
Well, one thing we need to keep in mind, our friend Betsy's not with us today, but we've heard over and over about how teachers are paid. I think it's important to remember there's a pretty big benefit in retiring as a teacher or a state employee. That is often not factored in when that 23-year-old takes the teaching job.
Right.
Yep.
And that's the exchange. You know, as an educator, you're not going to get the same salaries as other college-educated people, but you got a pretty nice retirement benefit waiting on you at the end.
Absolutely, and thank you to all our teachers and other state employees. There's no question this is a debt that has to be met, without a doubt. It's earned. Well, Mr. Harris, with the fires in California, airplane crashes, it seems like the North Carolina mountains have sort of fallen off the radar, but goodness knows they're still behind the 8 ball. Catch us up on where we're going there.
It's a challenge. It's been less than 5 months, and it's still a mess up there. But, I recognize that when New Orleans had its disaster with the hurricane, it took them about 8 years to recover. And Pete O'Leary, the mayor of Chimney Rock, said in November that it's going to take the town years. The initial response is simply clean up. If you drive up Polkville Highway in Shelby, you see all the cleanup that's still going on just in Cleveland County. Part of it is open. Asheville's open. The Biltmore State's open. But it's going to take years to fix North Carolina.
It will, Mike. It's funny how the news cycle works. Big news, then it's over. It's a flash in the pan. But
it gets off the radar.
There's serious problems up there.
Well, we've got the General Assembly back in session. The governor, to his credit, if you can believe I'm saying that, Andy,
I can.
only asked for $1 billion, whereas Cooper asked for all the rainy day fund before he left.
Yeah, he did.
And then the General Assembly is starting out with $500 million, saying there'll be more. But I give Stein credit for realizing that while he wants to do more quicker than the General Assembly feels like is prudent, I give him credit for seeing it's got to be more incremental as the feds come along and we meet matches. And I think on this subject, for the most part, the General Assembly and the governor will work together at some level. But I don't think there's any doubt that 3 to 5 years is going to be out there before some of it gets done. We've got Matthew and Florence hurricane victims, they say 1,000 of them, that still don't have their houses rebuilt after up to 5 years, which is a tragedy.
Well, and again, to Governor Stein's credit, he's created a different department to oversee things than Cooper had with Matthew, and he seems intent on getting this right.
Yeah, I think so. And he's made this his main concern ever since he took the oath of office when he came in January. He's not going to forget it. I don't know how many times he's been in that part of the state. I mean, he has made this his main thrust since he's got there. He's not going to, and he is not from there. So many people from the eastern part of the state forget about that end of the state.
And outside of Asheville and Boone, he didn't get a lot of votes.
No, he didn't.
So he's doing it because it's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do. So I commend him so much, but this is going to be a long drawn out. Infrastructure that has took decades to build cannot be rebuilt in a few months. This is going to be years in the making. I'd hate to know what all's in Lake Lure. I mean, it's going to take
And
years.
the damage was from
just
the
for that.
Virginia line to the South Carolina line.
I mean, if you've not been up there, folks, it is just horrendous what's going on. But we're all going to have to keep this at the forefront of our brains to understand that we've got to keep helping these people.
Well, and don't expect either Mike or I to say a whole lot of nice things about Josh Stein over the next 4 years, but I do think we acknowledge he's got the focus right on this, and that's appreciated. And I think it's important for us to keep Western North Carolina in mind. Andy, we've talked about various groups. Samaritan's Purse has been significant up there. Baptist on Mission has been significant, and there are dozens of others. And I think it's worth looking at and seeing how each of us can do something to help with the efforts going on there. Well, a local company in Uptown Shelby is hosting a protest on February 23rd with the stated intent to inform those in our community of marginalized groups which are being unnecessarily targeted and discriminated against. They don't have any financial gain coming from this, either by the organizers or Lily Bean Coffee, who's hosting. The only thing they're asking is a donation to the community food pantry. But it has sure generated an awful lot of discussion on social media. Mike, any thoughts on this quickly?
Well, Lily Bean or any other firm has the absolute right to join in protest as small businesses if they want to. Having been a small businessman most of my life, I'm well aware of the fact that every time you take a position publicly and you're in business, you lose some and you might get one. And so they're taking a calculated risk. If they're doing what they believe in and doing it lawful, they have every right to do so.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Yep.
Mr. Harris?
I'm a firm believer in the First Amendment. You're going to attract some customers, and some folks are going to make unhappy.
More power to them.
Same way. Appreciate people standing up and being passionate about what they believe. All right, let's move on to the lightning round. Mike, what do you have for us?
Well,
Is it worth a penny?
it cost about 3.07 cents to make a copper penny that is not copper. Since 1982, they're 97.5% zinc to save price. I think it's obvious that penny production is not worth the trouble any longer. Up until 1982, they were 95% copper, and a 1981 or before penny in today's money is worth over 3 cents today, but you do have to account for your time you melt it down and all. You don't really have that much, but there's a big discussion. It's a part of the Doge thing about saving government money, but we have spent $179 million in 2023 making pennies. And that's 3.07 times what they were worth. I think it's time to round to the nearest nickel.
Andy?
Well, I've learned something this week. It explains a lot of stuff that's going on in the world right now. There's been a study been done about how plastics is getting into all minor things, especially microplastics. And the study's released how much is getting into the human bloodstream and in our bodies. It has been found that in the human brain, there is an equivalent of 4 to 5 paper clips of plastic in weight in the brain.
This is Democrats or Republicans?
Either one of them. Libertarians maybe more so. But that's what we're finding. That's how much the plastics are getting into our environment that is getting into us.
RFK will solve it.
Well, no, he's got to make room for his worm. But that is scary how much is getting into our environment. It's crazy.
Mr. Harris?
Word is just starting to get out about a lawsuit filed by the ACLU against Cleveland County Schools a few days ago. The issue has to do with a student group at Shelby High School called the Activism Club. The suit claims that their First Amendment rights have been denied. The students wanted to play a quiz bowl game during their flex period. And according to the suit, school authorities told the students they couldn't play the game. So far, the only side we know is the ACLU side of the events, and there's always two sides to every coin. Let's pay attention, but reserve judgment and criticism until we hear both sides.
I think that's always wise. Thank you for joining us this week on Political Smackdown. We look forward to seeing you next week for a new edition.